Nintendo may be taking on the world, and that may include the U.S. government as its lawfare campaign expands and continues. Of course, I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney and legal mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. So let's get right into it today. So this is a topic that many people have asked me to cover. And they've been asking me to cover this for a very long time because it's something very much ongoing, and it affects not just Nintendo, not just Pokemon and Pal World, but the entire gaming space. And this could affect a genre. This could affect the gaming space, the modding community, and even Nintendo itself. This could be make or break for Nintendo, where they cement an image in the world, in the gaming community, as the villain, as the evil corporation, and really turn things downward for their very own business. But we're going to talk about this today from both a legal perspective and also from a business perspective, because as I am a corporate attorney, I've seen the inside of these corporations. I know what makes business sense and what doesn't. And indeed, this campaign of lawfare is absolutely suicidal for Nintendo. And of course, this is a fast facts video. So if you want to see the longer version, you want to get all the reactions, all the comments, you check out the live. If you do like the fast facts, make sure you like the video and leave a comment below. So let's get into the PowerPoint, the PP here today. And of course, this is both a Japanese and US thing, because the lawsuits are going on in Japan, but there's US patents involved. And of course, when the US government gets involved, well, that will be a lawsuit in America. So let's talk about this. So first of all, there's an update that Nintendo is now arguing as part of their ongoing lawsuit with Power World that mods don't count as proper games. So what they're attempting to do is have Power World say, hey, you need to shut down every single mod out there of Power World, especially if it would even seem a little bit like Pokemon. We're going to have you shut that down because Power World is, of course, being accused of being too similar to Pokemon, and therefore, hey, we're going to say you got to shut down everything. Now, mind you, their current lawsuit is over patents. It's actually not a copyright lawsuit, but they're attempting to expand it further. And you can see that, of course, people are coming out with mods and spin-off games right now. You see Pal Farm here, which is a Pal World spin-off game, enjoying a farming life with mysterious creatures known as pals. Team up with them and grow your farm at your own pace in this brand new creature collecting farming sim, fully playable and multiplayer. So this is them, hey, kind of spinning off of Pal World. Well, guess what? This is exactly the type of thing Nintendo hates. And what Nintendo is missing out here is that both Pal World and all these mods like Pal Farm are things that actually help Nintendo, help the company, and help everybody, but only because they're operating from this scarcity mindset, which drives them into this insane lawfare. Are they dragging themselves down here? And we're going to see kind of some of the legal consequences here. So let's talk about the legal battles of Nintendo. And there's various ones that are ongoing here. First, and this is the biggest thing that bothers me, is that this battle over mods, really the decision whether or not to mod, rests with the game owner and their end user license agreement, their EULA. So if Power World wants to decide to allow mods, that's Power World's decision. That should not be Nintendo's decision. So the big issue with this precedent is if Nintendo wins this precedent, then any game which looks at another game and says, hey, this looks sort of similar to me, or hey, I made some last minute patent, and we're going to talk about the sneaky patent troll level BS that Nintendo is pulling. Any company could come out, file a last minute patent, and stop mods. This would kill the modding community. This would allow big corporations, big corpos to nuke mods across the board. And this is an absolute travesty because mods are sometimes the most beloved parts of the game. In fact, many times big companies look at the mods and they find which mod is most successful, and they make a game based on the mod, or they make official support for that mod, right? Look at Dota, right? Dota became a thing, right? And that's, once again, goes all the way back to being a mod. But a lot of these gaming companies have forgotten their roots. They've forgotten where things come from. And they're just trying to win through little legal persnickety tactics, which just make them seem petty and ultimately push them deeper and deeper into the villain role. And the biggest thing that happened here that really caught my eye was last month, Nintendo snuck in a new patent, a US patent, about summoning a sub character to fight. So essentially what this does is say anytime that there's any game where there's a sub character, that meaning, the main character. Now, initial analysis by patent attorneys, and once again, that's not my area of specialty. I'm more of a generalist. Initial analysis has said, yeah, well, it's technically legal, but they really don't want a judge to look at it. If a judge looked at this, they might say, hold on there, especially in the United States, hold on there. What you're trying to do is control the entire pocket monster genre, or even pocket character or sub character genre. You really can't do that. You can't do that in America. You can't say, hey, no, we own the entire genre. You can't do anything in this entire genre. That's not allowed. Think about superheroes saying, hey, you can't make a superhero genre, or you can't make a monster genre, or whatever else, right? A horror genre, dinosaur genre, right? How far are we going to let these corporations go and just monopolizing genres? It doesn't make sense, and it stifles creativity. It's absolutely horrible for everybody. Nobody wins here, and the corporation just looks horrible. Now, what the reality is, and once again, I tell you guys a legal reality, whether the facts meet your feelings or not. And I hope that people who both are pro Nintendo and anti Nintendo can listen to this. But Japanese courts are likely to favor Nintendo. And now that's both based on the power and structure of Nintendo in Japan, their influence, etc. But the other thing that is really important to note, especially with the US patents, is if any of those patents in the US are challenged, US courts might not look so favorably on Nintendo. So under US law, they might be in some trouble. And that's where Nintendo is probably sweating right now. Because if someone with deep enough pockets came at them and really came at them hard and really pressed them, they might be in some big trouble. So I want to get into a situation with America. In fact, it got brought up today by ICE in the Department of Homeland Security, which dropped a very spicy video. And I'm wondering whether there's some base Chad in the social media department at DHS who's just sitting there. He's a gamer and he's like, hey, you know what's trending right now? Nintendo being an asshole. So let's troll them and let's absolutely poke Nintendo, because if anybody can go after Nintendo, it is the US government. Once again, Nintendo has a lot of money, but the US government could just print money. I mean, they just print money. And what makes it even worse is most Japanese debt, if you don't know this, they tend to have a lot of it denominated in US dollars. So as the US prints, that just hurts the Japanese side. So Nintendo attempting to borrow would probably just end up benefiting the US government, which just would fuel the lawsuit. So it's absolutely a glorious situation. It's kind of a funny white pill. But anyways, you can see the DHS in this gotta catch 'em all ICE video referencing the ICE roundups, used the kind of trademark lettering of Pokemon. You can see them here rounding up people. They use clips from Pokemon, Pokeballs, Hatch Catch 'em, etc. Right? To the tune of gotta catch 'em all. So this is something that, hey, if Nintendo was going to come at them and Nintendo was going to say, hey, we're litigious, we have to sue everybody, we have to do everything. Well, Nintendo, if you want to play that game, if you want to be a big boy and sue everybody, let's see you sue the United States. Please, dear YouTube overlords, dear Nintendo, please do that. You will print me so much money covering this case. Please do that. As a grifter lawyer here on YouTube, I would love that. And I say it as a term of endearment, right? Of course, I'm joking. That would be horrible for Nintendo. That would be absolute disaster for them. But what was also funny is they not just copied the theme, but they even went to Pokemon cards. So even the Pokemon cards and all that related to them, they kind of, made those out. And whoever did the Pokemon card element of this video was like 3 seconds, but they put thought and detail into this, like type illegal HP1, right? They got their, crime here. They got their, history. And then the best thing that made me really laugh was weakness to ice. Weakness to ice. That's absolutely hilarious. And of course, they all died to a shed ninja. Isn't it sad when you all die to a shed ninja? But anyways, let's look at this in fair use. So let's say, hey, if Nintendo's going to come at the U.S. government, what would happen? What are the fair use factors? And this applies to a lot of other cases as well. You can use this just broadly, especially for copyright, etc. Well, there's really 4 things. Purpose and character of the use. Is it commercial, non-commercial? Is it research, educational, governmental? The nature, is it factual or creative? The amount and substantiality of the work used. So if we're talking about the Ethan Klein lawsuits, right? If you just watch all of his content, that's all of it. That's really one of Ethan's stronger arguments in his lawsuits against Casey Tron, Denims, and the Orbiters, and Discord and Reddit. But they just use some clips, right? So that's a much different story. And then last is the effect on the market. So are you a market competitor? Are you a market competitor to Pokemon? So let's look at that compared to the US government. Let's pretend in a magical world, pretend world, where Pokemon and Nintendo sue the US government. This is not going to go well for them because the purpose and character of the use is governmental. It's nonprofit. They're not making a game. They're just trolling. They're just making a meme, right? What's the nature? It's a creative parody. So it's something that typically is protected, not something that typically they would rule in favor of Nintendo. What's the amount? They only use little clips of the pieces. They use the theme song, but it's mostly government footage of government, officers arresting people, which Nintendo doesn't own. And what's the effect on the market? Not at all. The government is not in the pocket monster genre. The government is not, selling games. The government is not selling Game Boys and stuff like that. So all these factors would go in favor of the US government. So they would just lose that fight. But what I want to talk about today in the business suicide, and this is part of the deeper thought here that I hope you guys can appreciate as people of culture, is that there is an ability to profit even if something is similar. And this is kind of the double effect. It's kind of the Hollywood double effect, or some people actually call this the Armageddon deep impact effect. Now, I know some of you Gen Z people may not know this, so stick with me. Back in the day of movies, when movies were good, when Hollywood did things, right? Think way back. You were probably a wee one if you're a younger person, but I remember this. They would put out similarly themed movies. So they're both about an asteroid that would end the Earth. And what this would do is, instead of hurting, because people might think, if you're living in a scarcity mindset, thinking, oh my gosh, there's only so much money. We got to get that money. We got to knock out our competitor. You might think, wow, why didn't Armageddon sue Deep Impact? Right? Why didn't they knock them out of there? Well, number one, you can't take over a whole genre, right? And number two, the movies actually generated more money because both of them came out around the same time. Why did that happen? Let's talk about the double effect. So this is a proven market strategy that boosts both products. There's shared hype, right? So people get excited for both. They get excited for, hey, I love space. I love these movies. And it creates a cultural conversation. People start talking about space, start talking about asteroids, start talking about, well, what if this happened? What would you do, right? It's like the zombie genre. People started talking about, well, if zombies attacked, what would you do? Would you survive? What would you do? What's your tactic for zombies, right? And it just takes over your thoughts. Beyond that, there's strategic differentiation. So let's talk about Pokemon and Power World. So with Pokemon is intended for younger audiences. Now, I know I say intended because that said, and I'm looking at all of you guys out there, and listen, I don't care how much Tylenol you've taken. I'm not going to judge you, right? No judgment here in the legal mindset. Yes, I know older people play Pokemon. I know a lot of adults that play Pokemon. I'm not judging you for that. Listen, I may or may not. I cannot disclose whether I have emulators on my computer, okay? And I cannot disclose whether I've played Pokemon Ultraviolet. That's something I'm not going to disclose on the internet. But that said, you can say, okay, Pokemon is intended for younger audiences. Power World is mature. Power World has guns. Power World perhaps tackles the topic of slavery, right? There's these more mature topics and more refined taste, you might say, for Power World. It's not necessarily a one-for-one. And beyond that, what it does is it boosts the genre, increased visibility. People are talking about pocket monsters, right? Pocket Monsters becomes cool again. It becomes a thing because everyone's making these games. And lastly, there can be cultural references. Content creators can argue forever. I remember getting on podcasts and talking about, hey, which is better, this or that, like with zombie movies, which is better, right? With fantasy, which is better, right? A Wheel of Time, Lord of the Rings, etc. Like you can argue and nerd out over these things, and that's good for both of the properties. It's good for everybody. You do not need to knock everybody out. So my kind of, preaching to Nintendo here, it's sort of, the choose the path of good, right? I've been on this kind of thing here for a lot of different reasons, but choose the path of good, Nintendo. You still can get people to like you, but you have to decide which character you want to be, right? Do you want to be Bowser? Do you want to be evil, or do you want to be Mario? Right? And I'm okay if you're Donkey Kong, right? I'm okay if you're out there wrecking stuff. Even Peach, because actually she's probably like a little bit chaotic bad. I don't know. Peach, I may have to demote her. But once again, you can be Donkey Kong. You can still wreck stuff. You can still be a little wild. But you don't want to be evil. You don't want to be in the Bowser Goomba, territory and be known as a bad company. And I want a world in which good games are made and Nintendo makes good games. If Nintendo goes back to just focusing on the games instead of suing everybody and realizing that they themselves will profit, if they lay off the gas, they become the good guy, they focus on their content, and they can even collaborate with other companies that are in the similar genre and work together. How about a Pocket Monster convention, right? You could do so much with that. You could do so much with that if you choose to work together and focus on what businesses should be doing, which is making money instead of engaging in lawfare. I want to know what you guys think in the comments below, and I will catch you on the next.